Hello, this is Brian. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, and I'm over here in the Laguna Mountains near Stevenson Peak in the Cleveland National Forest, San Diego County, California, and it's time for a Spotlight on Shrubs video. And today I want to focus on the beautiful Parish Bluecurls. And this is it right here, Trichostema parishii. Trichostema parishii is a generally small, somewhat upright evergreen shrub in the mint family, the Lamiaceae, and is an occasional to maybe sometimes frequent find when you're hiking in the mountains. But the bluecurls, this is just one of at least 4 species of bluecurls we have here in Southern California. We have this one, Trichostema parishii, Parish Bluecurls. Then we have Trichostema lanatum, which is its closest relative, and that's the woolly bluecurls. And it can be very easily confused with Parish Bluecurls. Then we have at least 2 species of annual bluecurls, one of which is the vinegar bluecurls, or vinegar weed, and that's Trichostema lanceolatum. And you can refer to my September 26, 2021 spotlight video for that plant. And then there's one in the, I believe in the San Jacinto Mountains. I want to say Trichostema ashramontanum, but don't quote me on that one. And so lanceolatum and ashramontanum, or whatever that one is, those are annuals. But these, parishii and lanatum, are woody-based shrubs. So I mentioned that this plant's in the mint family. So we're going to see a lot of characteristics that are pretty well known on Lamiaceae, the mint family. To start off, we have these roughly square-shaped stems, upright square-shaped stems, very characteristic of Lamiaceae, and in the order Lamiales, and oppositely arranged foliage and branches. So the leaves are opposite one another on the stem. As you can kind of see here, right there, these leaves are opposite each other. And they are very cheerful, bright green color. So they're very cheerful. The leaves are very cheerful, especially during the early part of the growing season. Obviously, as the dry season progresses and we go in more towards the dry heat of summer and the plant is a little more dehydrated, the leaves will definitely look a little less lustrous as they do now, especially after having an awesome rainy season like we did. Eventually they'll fade to more of a dullish color, but during the growing season they're just so bright and apple green and beautiful. And then, being that it's a mint family, and not all mint family members are like this, this plant is very aromatic, very pleasantly aromatic. So what you're going to do is just gently rub a leaf or section of leaves, put it up to your nose, and it has a real clean fragrance to it, kind of akin to a mint or a sage, kind of in between actually. So I'm going to go shoot a picture or two of this beautiful Trichostema parishii, and then we'll start talking about some more of the other details. Of course, some of the obvious ones that I have kind of avoided talking about, which I will in the next segment. So I talked about the leaves, the oppositely arranged leaves, and how narrow the leaves are. The leaves are quite narrow, as you can see here, very narrow, which its other close relative, Trichostema lanatum, also has very narrow leaves like that. So, if they're so similar like I had mentioned before, how do we tell them apart? And that can actually be kind of complicated depending on what time of year you're looking at the plant. If you're looking at the plant during the rest of the year, most of the year, it might be extremely difficult. Maybe an extremely well-versed botanist that's way beyond my level would be able to tell what it is when it's not in bloom. Because as far as I can tell, they look pretty much identical when they're not in bloom. Again, I haven't been attuned to the foliage differences between the two, because I've seen both of them, Lanatum and parishii. Again, this being parishii. And they look remarkably the same when they're not in bloom. So that leads me to the next topic, the blooms. The most obvious part of this plant during the late spring to early summer, the blooms, the absolutely spectacular, rich purple blooms of this plant. Just absolutely stunningly gorgeous. So, you get these upright, kind of like, almost like stage panicles, almost like a panicle of these beautiful, deep purple flowers with some splotching in the middle. You have to look really carefully to see that. One thing that is very obvious is the stamens. You can see the stamens right here, right where my finger's touching. The stamens kind of arise and come out and curl. And that, with the purplish blue color of the flowers, that gives rise to the common name, the bluecurls, because of the curled stamens that are very showy. Okay, so that's what a general bluecurl flower looks like, bluecurl. That's the same with most of the bluecurls in the genus Trichostema. So, how does this help? How does this help anybody discern whether we're looking at Trichostema lanatum or parishii? So, Trichostema lanatum and parishii are both, again, very commonly mixed up shrubs that are very similar, very difficult to tell apart. It all depends on the hairiness of the flower stalks. That's where it can be helpful to really pay attention to the flower stalks or the pedestals. So, on Parish Bluecurls, the flowers and the flower stalks are kind of fuzzy. They have a little bit of a fuzz to them. And Trichostema lanatum, the woolly bluecurls, also has fuzziness on the flowers. So here we go, another similarity. Brian, when are you going to talk about the differences? Here we go. You asked for it. The differences, you have to look carefully, but the fuzziness on the Parish Bluecurls is not enough to obscure being able to see the flower stalk above the inflorescence. So if you look carefully, you can see the flower stalks rising from the inflorescence, or jutting out from the inflorescence. So they're fuzzy, just like Trichostema lanatum. But on Parish Bluecurls, the one we're talking about, you can see the flower stalks quite apparently. If you look carefully, you'll be able to see it, and you'll be like, yeah, okay, I can see what's going on here. So the flower stalks are not obscured by the fuzziness. In Trichostema lanatum, the woolly bluecurls, it is. So you can't really see the flower stalks too well on Trichostema lanatum. So that's how I know I'm looking at a Trichostema parishii. So let's get a few close-ups of these flowers, and we'll start talking about where you're going to find this plant and when are you more likely to find it in higher abundance if it's not extremely common. So we'll go into that momentarily. But let's get some photos of these beautiful flowers. Even the flower buds themselves are attractive because they're beautiful purple. But once those lips and the hood open up on the flowers, it's just absolutely insanely beautiful. All right, so where I am, I'm at an elevation of 6,050 feet here in the Laguna Mountains, not that far above Sunrise Highway, and not that far from Stevenson Peak. So where I am is I'm kind of in this little field here that has seen repeated disturbance from fires and construction, and obviously people like me flitting about here and there. So, blue curls are plants that like to colonize after disturbance. They tend to come up more so after fire and other mechanical disturbance. So fire is a good way to get these plants to come up in the wild. I'm not sure if it's required. I never tried germinating Trichostema species, but Parish Bluecurls and his cousin, the woolly Bluecurls, tend to come up more after disturbance. So that's why if you're in an area that hasn't been disturbed a lot, you might not see it very often. Doesn't mean you won't see it, but you won't see it nearly as much. I'm going to go over to this little spot here. There are a couple more here. But Bluecurls like to be out in the sun. They love being out in disturbed areas, fields, but especially disturbed and open areas of chaparral. Very much at home in the chaparral. And we've got some more Bluecurls over here. So these plants love to be in the sun. Okay, not stress that enough. So they definitely like to be out in the sun, and they can be very good at colonizing disturbed sites. Such a beautiful plant. This is an absolutely beautiful plant. Smells so good. It looks so beautiful when it flowers, and its green foliage is very pleasing to look at as well. Parish Bluecurls is can be, again, can be found in mostly disturbed, open, sunny areas. I have seen it in the San Gabriel Mountains. I think it was Parish Bluecurls as well. Woolly Bluecurls, basically, Trichostema lanatum, also had home in open chaparral areas and recent burn areas and disturbed sites. So that's not a surprise. But every now and then you'll find it in the understory. Occasionally in the understory, under shrubs and larger shrubs and trees, but generally they want to be out in the sun. No big surprise there. So as for the full range of this plant, it can be pretty widespread here in Southern California, but I will keep you posted on the screen about where you're going to find this plant more here in California. And another thing between that and the woolly Bluecurls is Parish Bluecurls tend to be found at higher elevations than woolly Bluecurls. Not all the time, but that tends to be the trend, the growing habits of that plant. They tend to like a little bit higher elevations. Again, we're just above 6,000 feet right now. I've seen them at least as high as 6,100 feet. So I've seen them, they might go even a little bit higher than that. But woolly Bluecurls, I don't know if they go much above 4,000 or 5,000 feet. Well, there's another small population I want to show off before I go. So go head over there right now. Here's one more small pocket of it right here. I'll show you. More Parish Bluecurls. These are younger specimens here. When they're young, when they're very young, they look quite small and herbaceous. And a lot of their upper tissue is herbaceous. It's when you get deep down, when you start seeing the lower stems on that plant get very woody with age. See, these ones here are kind of young, they're kind of small, so you're not going to really get to see a lot of that woody tissue. But I'm going to show you some with more woody tissue so you can get to see what the bark looks like. The bark itself is just another awesome feature of this plant. Very, very handsome when it gets tall, upright, and starts displaying its colorful bark. It's actually got some of the more colorful barks of the Lamiaceae. So, well, first of all, as you can see here, the stems are kind of fuzzy too, like the flowers. The stems, these are the more herbaceous stems here, and they're green with a reddish tint on them, as you can see. So these are the more herbaceous ones here. Now, like I said, with age, they do get woody. So let's go over to some woody-based ones to really get a good look at it. So let's start off the conclusion of this video by looking at the woody stems of this plant. Like I said, the top part of it is going to be quite herbaceous. Like a lot of other mint family plants like sages. These are related to sages. A lot of times, the top's herbaceous and the base is woodier. So, when we get an older specimen like this, then we get these dark grayish furrowed trunks. The bark's kind of furrowed on these. Quite attractive, actually. So that's the bark of Trichostema. And in this case, Trichostema parishii. So, very much a woody-based shrub. Maybe could still be considered a sub-shrub, but eventually they can grow up to a good few feet tall and be formally known as a shrub. But there you have it. Parish Bluecurls, Trichostema parishii, up here in the Laguna Mountains of Cleveland National Forest in the scintillatingly beautiful San Diego County. That will basically do that for my spotlight on shrubs video. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative and also helpful in trying to differentiate this and the other bluecurl, the other really closely related bluecurls, the woolly bluecurls, which I've yet to spotlight yet. I have not spotlighted that one, so be on the lookout eventually that I finally get to that one to spotlight it as well. But there you go, Trichostema parishii. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on another spotlight.